Alright, hello there, thrill seekers, and I'm calling today's song 95% Wichita Lineman. It's Wichita Lineman, the old Glenn Campbell song written by Jimmy Webb, but I couldn't figure out certain parts of it, so I just kind of made them up, so that's why I'm saying it's 95% Wichita Lineman. Alright, it's hot out here, and it's humid because it rained yesterday, which is weird. It rained a couple of times yesterday, and there was thunder and lightning. And I said a thunderstorm on yesterday's video, but it wasn't quite a storm. It was more like a thunder shower, but still pretty unusual for these parts of the world. So this is why I kind of might look a little sweaty and disheveled. So today we got a question, and since before your sun burned hot in space and before your race was born, you know the rule. And today's question is a bit of a challenge because it's an unanswerable question, but I got 3 different variations on the same question, so I'd like to read them for you, and I'd like to see what I can do as far as answering them. Brad, if all we are searching for is truth, how will we recognize it? How do we? If we do, how will we even know it is the truth, in quotes? Ultimately, how can it be claimed that it even exists if Buddhists have been searching for it for centuries but it's nowhere to be found? It's like the question of God's existence. I have not seen God, but I know He exists. Now we're in the realm of belief. Am I making sense? Yeah, you're making sense. It's a good question. Let me read another variation of the same question. Different person, but I think it's kind of the same question. If I'm misguided about this, please correct me. Buddhism seems to stress the importance of getting to a point where we are able to have direct experience, in quotes, of whatever is occurring in the moment, before thinking mind, before our preconceived ideas, biases, filters, etc. kick in. My question is this: if we're clouded by our erroneous perceptions, don't they become our immediate default interpretation of that present moment? How do we work with that and self-correct? Maybe I'm not understanding something basic and obvious. Hope you can offer some clarification and insight regarding this. I love this Dogen quote: if you want to see things just as they are, then you yourself must practice just as you are. Good quote. And here's the last variation on the question. It says, are all perceptions inherently the result of / reinforcing, so the result of / reinforcing dualistic thinking? So it's kind of a similar question. The first thing that comes to mind in answering this question is something that Nishijima Roshi said in a lecture that I remember to this day because it was sort of shocking to me at the time. And I've brought it up on this YouTube channel before, but here it goes again. Somebody asked him if we can be aware of our own enlightenment, and Nishijima Roshi said, no, you cannot be aware of your own enlightenment. And I remember sitting there hearing this and thinking, well, if you can't be aware of your own enlightenment, what's the whole point of what we're doing, because you're not going to be aware of it. So these are kind of similar questions. How do we know it's the truth when we come across it? It says if Buddhists, the questioner says, if Buddhists have been searching for it, the truth, for centuries, but it's nowhere to be found. That's not entirely the case. The problem is the truth can't be put into words. It's not that it can't be found. So that's a kind of a mistake there. But it does sound like a cop-out, and I'm well aware of this because I was sitting where you guys are now, and I still am to a certain extent, listening to this and going, well, that sounds like a cop-out. You're just saying you can't put this into words because maybe you don't even know what it is, and that's why you can't put it into words, which happens sometimes. I mean, people do that a lot in life. They kind of say, well, I can't describe it, when they really they don't know what it is to begin with. So yeah, okay, I get that. That, I guess, is sort of a matter of faith. You either have faith that the teachers you're listening to and their teachers' teachers and all the way back down to Gautama Buddha and probably before him, you either have faith that those people are telling the truth and not putting you on and not trying to hornswoggle you into something, or you don't. And if you don't have any faith at all, well, you're not going to pursue it. But that's up to you. You can choose not to pursue it. The thing is, the thing you're seeking is the thing that's seeking the thing you're seeking. So we all have it in mind that we're going to experience the truth as an object. Like, here I am, just me being me, and there's truth out there, and oh look, I recognize that as a Fender Bass 6. Actually, it's a Squier copy of a Fender Bass 6, but I can't afford the actual Fender Bass 6, so I have the Squier version made in Indonesia instead of the Fender version made in the USA. But anyway, I can recognize what that is as an Indonesian-made Squier Bass 6 based on the old Fender Bass 6. So me, Brad, is subject, and object is Fender Bass 6, and I know what that is. So we think we're going to find the truth, like the big truth with a capital T, in that way, that we're going to be sitting here and recognize the truth as an object. But the problem is the subject and object are one and the same. So, as my one questioner asked, if all perceptions are inherently the result of or / reinforce dualistic thinking, yeah, that's kind of part of the problem. Perceptions can't reach the truth. Conceptions can't reach the truth. So that's a formula. Actually, that's my version of a formula Nishijima Roshi used to say. I can't remember how he said it, but I kind of came up a few years ago with perceptions and conceptions. So you can't perceive the truth, and you can't think your way to the truth. Neither of those work, and those are really, for most of us, those are the only ways we come to know anything. This is how we rely on our perceptions and on our thinking ability. But your perceptions and your thinking ability, my perceptions and my thinking ability, just like yours, are no match for the truth. They can't get to the truth because the truth is somewhere outside of that. And the thing is, when I was thinking about this question and thinking about how to answer it, here's what I sort of came up with. And I haven't articulated this before I turned on the camera and put it in my face, so we're going to see how it sounds when it comes out of my mouth instead of just being in my head. The perceiving mechanism and the conceiving mechanism, the mind and the body being the perceiving mechanism, body including eyes and nose and ears, throat and tongue, whatever, all the perceptual apparatus that we have, and the thinking mind, which is this sort of emptiness portion of the thing, of how we perceive things, how we come to know things. What was I going to say? Neither of them is adequate for the truth. So what these things do, what body and mind are meant to do, is to separate things into other things and to make categories and to organize them, and that's what the mind does, and that's what the perceptive faculties do. Well, the mind does with the input it gets from perception. It divides it up, so I know where the bass 6 ends and the guitar stand begins, or I know where the guitar stand ends and where the dirt begins, and I can make a kind of separation between those things, and then using that ability to separate things into things, I can carry the bass and its stand back into the house when I'm finished with this video, which is what I do every day. I carry a whole bunch of stuff out here into the yard, an extension cord, an amplifier, a microphone, a computer, a guitar stand, usually my cell phone, and usually a little speaker to hear. So I carry all this stuff out, and then I carry it back in, and I know which stuff is which, and I can kind of figure it out. And that's what perception does, and that's what conception does. But so that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to divide things up. And when you're talking about undivided reality, you can't get to undivided reality through a mechanism that is meant to divide reality up. It just can't be done. So as far as the thinking mind and the perceptive systems, I'm showing you my fingers because that's how I perceive the strings of the bass, for example, and my eyeballs perceive the screen I'm looking at and all this stuff, all this perceptive mechanism. Where was I going with that? I don't remember. But that stuff just divides things up, and you can't get there. Now, the other part of this that's kind of interesting that I was thinking of when trying to describe this is if you want to stand as an object and perceive all of reality, all of reality in toto, and that's your objective, if that's what you want to do, you're already doing it. You are already doing it. So you are already, as an object, perceiving the entirety of reality. So as well as any object can perceive the entirety of reality, at least as far as we know, you're already doing it. So, and according to the Buddhist formulation of things, the human perceptive system is the best. They kind of, this is, okay, a little tangent. When I was writing the book that I abandoned before I wrote The Other Side of Nothing, I was trying to write a book about UFOs and aliens. One of the things that is kind of interesting to me in the Buddhist system of cosmology is they conceive of beings who have wider kind of perception than we do. So there's all kinds of, and when I was working on the book, I probably could have told you examples, but I can't right now. There's all kinds of mythical creatures, beings in the Buddhist literature who have perception that's beyond human perception, that can perceive more than humans can perceive, and can, we assume, think about more than humans can think about because they're perceiving more, so they have more to think about. Those exist, but according to the Buddhist conception of how karma works and everything, the best incarnation to have is the human incarnation, and the reason is the human sort of stands in the middle of things, so they're above the other animals, in that they can perceive more and think about more. But if you go beyond the human ability, then you get to a point where it's too good. And because it's too good, you never have the sort of suffering that propels you into the quest to learn the actual truth of things. So even a deva, or one of these mythical beings with great perception, is lucky to be incarnated after it dies its deva life, after it lives 10,000 or 100,000 or however many thousand years a deva lives. Then it gets to be reborn as a human and lives 100 years at best. But that's better, according to the Buddhists. So that's one of the interesting things, because we have limits, and our limits kind of propel us to go beyond them. And if you have no limits, you don't have any reason to go beyond. Very interesting stuff, I thought, but maybe that's neither here nor there according to this video. But so the thing is, you can't. Let me get the questions again. How do we know it's the truth and the direct experience before thinking mind and all of that? And thinking mind can't figure that out. It can't. But how do you know it's the truth? Yesterday I talked about an experience that I thought at the time might be an enlightenment experience. So I went and asked my teacher, and he said, that's just something that happens to beginners. And I was really depressed, because I'd been doing Zazen for a whole year by then, and I figured I better get it after a year. My God, I spent a year on this. I better understand it. But it takes a lot of years to kind of wear everything down to the point where it becomes possible to perceive perceive it. Well, I said perceive. You don't perceive it, but something kind of comes through and affects this system, this mind-body system. This is the way I'm choosing to put it today. I don't know if I'd put it the same way tomorrow or would have put it the same way yesterday. But it affects this body-mind. And because it's had that effect on the body-mind, that somehow an opening has happened, that is something that, well, for one thing, you can never forget it. I think I'm on solid ground. I would normally say I can never forget it, which is true, but I think the evidence is there from others who have kind of gone the same direction, that we can't. A human being can't forget it once it's happened, and it's stunningly obvious. That's the other part of it that's interesting, because until the moment that it happens, until the moment that the opening happens, it doesn't seem obvious. The moment it happens, it's like, oh, yeah, all right. It's like remembering something you've forgotten, like something you knew a long time ago and suddenly you remembered it again. That's a sort of a similar experience, but bigger. So it's like that experience, but bigger, of remembering something you didn't remember. But it's much more slap in the face, visceral, like it's right there, and there's no avoiding it. So if, as I said yesterday, if you have to ask, if you feel you have to ask somebody about it, then that's not it. There was a guy I was at the San Francisco Zen Center eating dinner, and there was two people having a conversation next to me that I wasn't involved in, but one was an older fella, older than me anyway, like maybe 10 years older than me or something. And he's talking to somebody, and he said, "Yeah, I was here in the 70s or whatever it was, and in the San Francisco Zen Center, and I meditated, and I thought I had an enlightenment experience, but the Roshi wasn't around that day, so I couldn't ask, so I never found out if it was an enlightenment experience or not." I thought that was an amusing question, because the real enlightenment experience, the thing that qualifies for that name, for Satori or Kensho or names like that, is something stunningly obvious that you can't, there can't be any question about it. There's no more question about it than there is that I have a mostly empty, there's just a little spit in there, not spit, but a little bit of water, mostly empty cup in my hand. So like that I know for sure. It's that level of knowing for sure. It's not something where you're going, well, I don't know, maybe that was it, but So the question that people ask, that I asked when I first started this, of how do you know it's real enlightenment? I asked Tim that. I asked Nishijima that. It's from the standpoint of somebody just starting on the path. That seems like a relevant question. It seemed like a relevant question to me. It probably seems like a relevant question to most of you who are watching this, but it's not. That's all I can tell you, really. It's not. It's just not a relevant question. It's too obvious. So there you go. I don't know if that was an answer. The answer is that there's no answer. Sorry. But there you go. So if you want to support me doing more stuff like that, like this, learning more songs and doing more videos, and also paying for my house and paying for my food and paying for Ziggy's food, then you can go to the URL that you're seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main ways of making a living. Totally, really, your donations are my main means of support. My book royalties don't cut it. My speaking fees don't cut it. But your donations are what I live on. So I appreciate your support. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't gotta donate if you don't want to donate. So we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey Ziggy, how you doing? I know it's hot outside. You don't want to be outside. You just want to stay in here. All right, it's cooler in here. We'll let you sleep. Bye.